On Mother's Day, my daughter-in-law screamed at me in front of 100 guests, "Get out of here and go fix lunch, you useless old woman." I just obeyed. As I was serving myself, she knocked my plate to the floor and made me clean it up. I had set aside $42,000 to give to her. Instead, I gave her an envelope with a photo that made her pass out. My name is Shirley Whitaker and I'm 63 years old. I never thought that at this age I would be standing in the middle of the kitchen of my own home, cleaning food off the floor while 100 guests watched me from the open dining room door. The plate had shattered against the tiles with a crash that silenced all the conversations at the party. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot, and suddenly every eye in that crowded room was on me, kneeling on the cold kitchen floor. It had all started as what should have been a normal celebration. It was my son Andre's 36th birthday, and like every year for the past 6 years, Vanessa had insisted on throwing a huge party. Of course, I was the one who cooked, cleaned, and prepared everything while she strutted around like the perfect hostess, receiving compliments for an immaculate house and a delicious meal that she had never even touched with her perfectly manicured hands. That morning, I had woken up at 4:30 to start the preparations. There was a honey-glazed ham, collard greens, candied yams, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, and peach cobbler. All the dishes Andre had loved since he was a boy. My arthritic hands ached after 4 hours of chopping vegetables and stirring pots, but I didn't care. It was for my son. For the family. For the illusion that we were still a family. Vanessa had appeared in the kitchen around noon, impeccably dressed in a cream-colored designer suit that probably cost more than my entire monthly Social Security check. She looked at me working by the stove, sweat beading on my forehead, and her lip curled in that expression of disgust I'd come to know so well over the years. "Shirley, I hope you didn't overseason the greens like last time," she said without even greeting me, not even a good morning. My friends are very particular about their food. They're used to quality. I swallowed hard and nodded. I had been living with them for 6 years, ever since my husband passed away and left me with nothing but a small Social Security check. I'd learned that responding to Vanessa's criticisms only made things worse. Much worse. Andre worked so much, pulling 60-hour weeks at his architecture firm, that he rarely witnessed these little interactions between Vanessa and me. To him, his wife was an angel who had generously agreed to let his widowed mother live in their beautiful house in Shaker Heights. He didn't see the daily humiliations, the constant reminders that I was a burden, an inconvenience in what she considered her domain. The guests started arriving around 2 inches the afternoon. I stayed in the kitchen, my station, as Vanessa called it, serving dishes and arranging platters, while Vanessa greeted everyone in the spacious living room with its high ceilings and expensive artwork. I could hear her crystalline laugh, her charming comments, the way everyone congratulated her on her wonderful hospitality and impeccable taste. "Andre is so lucky to have you," I heard Mrs. Henderson from down the street say. Not all wives would go to such trouble to throw such an elegant party. Vanessa accepted the compliments with false modesty, knowing perfectly well that I was in the back, sweating over the hot stove while she basked in the spotlight that should have been shared. That had always been shared, back when my husband was alive and we hosted parties together as a team. When it was finally time to eat, Vanessa came into the kitchen with that cold smile she reserved especially for me. There was something different in her demeanor today, something harder, more vicious. I'd seen her drinking wine steadily since the guests arrived, and alcohol always brought out the worst in her. "Shirley, I need you to serve dinner," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "and please wear the apron. We wouldn't want the guests to mistake you for someone important." My cheeks burned with shame. The apron was one thing, a practical necessity for serving, but the way she said it, as if I were hired help instead of the woman who had raised Andre in this very neighborhood, who had scrimped and saved to send him to college, who had held his hand through his father's death, it cut me deeper than any knife could. I served plate after plate, carrying heavy trays that made my lower back scream in protest. The guests ate and chatted animatedly, while I went back and forth between the kitchen and dining room like a ghost, invisible unless they needed something. Some smiled politely when I refilled their glasses. Others simply ignored me as if I were part of the furniture, no more remarkable than the expensive chandelier hanging overhead. When I was finally able to sit down at the small breakfast table in the corner of the kitchen with my own plate, exhausted and hungry after 10 hours on my feet, Vanessa appeared from behind me. She'd been drinking wine all afternoon, and her voice had that dangerous, sharp edge that appeared when she'd had too much. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked, her voice loud enough that it carried into the dining room. Loud enough that I saw several guests' heads turn toward the kitchen doorway. "I'm eating," I said quietly, looking down at my plate. The food I'd spent all morning preparing looked delicious, but my appetite was already disappearing. "Eating? Here? With the guests able to see you?" Her voice rose another notch, deliberately theatrical. "Surely, please. You know perfectly well that your place is in the back. In the pantry. Not here where people can see you." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the stares of everyone at the table burning into my back. My heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone in the house could hear it. The shame was a physical thing, hot and suffocating, wrapping around my throat. "Vanessa, I just wanted to eat something. I've been cooking since before dawn." "Get up," she commanded, her voice cutting through the air like a whip. "Go to the back where you belong, you useless old woman." The words hit me like a physical slap. Useless old woman, said in front of 100 people, people from my church, neighbors who'd known me for 30 years, Andre's colleagues, friends I'd helped over the years with babysitting, with meals when they were sick, with prayers when they were struggling. All of them looking at me now with a mixture of shock and pity that made me want to disappear from the face of the earth. I got up slowly, my legs trembling beneath me. I didn't say anything because I couldn't. My throat had closed up completely. My eyes burned with tears that I absolutely refused to shed in front of all these people. I wouldn't give Vanessa that satisfaction. But Vanessa wasn't finished with me, not even close. As I passed her carrying my plate, trying to maintain whatever dignity I had left, she stuck out her foot. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, calculated, cruel. I saw it happen as if in slow motion, but my tired body couldn't react fast enough. I tripped, stumbling forward. My plate flew through the air, seeming to hang there for a moment before crashing onto the kitchen floor in an explosion of food and broken ceramic. "Look what you've done!" Vanessa screamed, her voice filled with manufactured outrage. She was acting as if it had been my clumsiness, my fault entirely. "You've made a complete mess. Clean it up immediately, and don't you dare leave a single spot on my floor." I knelt down on the cold tile floor, my knees protesting painfully. Around me, the conversations in the dining room had stopped completely. The only sound was the clinking of my hands as I picked up pieces of broken plate, the only movement the slow gathering of food that had scattered everywhere. Collard greens, candied yams, chunks of ham, macaroni and cheese now mixed with broken ceramic. All the work of my morning, all those hours of standing and stirring and seasoning, reduced to garbage on the floor that I had to clean with my bare hands while 100 people watched. But as I knelt there, my knees aching against the hard tiles, Vanessa's voice still ringing in my ears as she made comments to the guests about how clumsy old people get, something inside me changed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet and cold, like ice forming on a window during a Cleveland winter. As I picked up each piece of broken plate, each bit of wasted food, I felt something hardening in my chest, a resolve, a decision, a line that had finally, irrevocably been crossed. I had endured 6 years of this. 6 long years of small and large humiliations. 6 years of being treated like an unwanted guest in a house where I'd helped with the down payment, using the small life insurance money from my husband. 6 years of watching Vanessa manipulate Andre, of seeing her spend his money on designer clothes and expensive jewelry while I made do with thrift store finds. 6 years of seeing her turn my son into someone I barely recognized. I finished cleaning in silence. The guests had awkwardly returned to their conversations, though I could still feel their occasional glances, heavy with pity. When I finally got up from the floor, my knees stiff and painful, Vanessa had returned to the living room, laughing loudly, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just publicly humiliated a 63-year-old woman in front of a crowd. But something had happened. Something fundamental had shifted in that kitchen, among the broken pieces of ceramic and the wasted food. I had made a decision. That night, after all the guests had finally left and Vanessa had gone to bed, satisfied with her performance and drunk on wine and cruelty, I stayed awake in my small bedroom at the back of the house. The room that had once been Andre's childhood playroom, now converted into my living space with its single bed and the few belongings I'd been allowed to keep. In my desk drawer, hidden beneath old photographs and papers, was an envelope I'd been preparing for months. An envelope that contained $42,000 in cash, money I had saved penny by penny over the past 4 years, setting aside whatever I could from my Social Security checks. My original plan had been foolish, almost embarrassingly naive now that I thought about it. I'd been planning to give that money to Vanessa as a peace offering, thinking that maybe, just maybe, if I proved I wasn't completely useless, if I showed her I could contribute financially, she might treat me with a shred of human decency. How stupid I had been. How desperately, pathetically stupid. But now, sitting in my room with the sounds of the house settling around me, I had completely different plans for that money, plans that Vanessa would never see coming. The $42,000 had been my secret for 4 years. Every month when my Social Security check arrived, just $890, I would set aside what I could. $20 here when I skipped my blood pressure medication to save money. $50 there when I walked to church instead of taking the bus. Sometimes more when Andre would slip me extra money without Vanessa knowing, money she would have demanded he keep from me if she'd found out. I'd saved on everything. I bought my clothes at Goodwill. I ate smaller portions. I even stopped getting my hair done professionally, learning to trim and style it myself in my small bathroom mirror. Every sacrifice had been for that envelope, for that dream of buying Vanessa's approval and affection. How naive I'd been to think her love could be bought, her respect could be purchased. The morning after the party, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The humiliation of the previous day still burned, but it had transformed into something else, something harder, something purposeful. As I made coffee in the silent kitchen before anyone else woke up, I took the envelope from its hiding place behind the old spice jars that Vanessa never used because she never cooked. $42,000 in $100 bills, carefully counted and recounted over the years. But there was another envelope too, a smaller one that I'd been preparing in secret for the last 7 weeks. This one didn't contain money. It contained something much more valuable, much more devastating. It contained the truth. It had all started 2 months ago on a Tuesday morning. I'd taken the bus downtown to pick up my prescription at the CVS on Euclid Avenue. As I was walking back to the bus stop, I saw Vanessa coming out of the Marriott Hotel in the middle of the day, around 2 inches the afternoon. At first, I thought maybe she was meeting friends for lunch, though she'd told Andre she was going shopping in Beechwood, but then I saw the man she was with. Saw the way he put his hand on the small of her back, saw them stop beside a black Mercedes in the parking garage entrance. And then I saw them kiss. Not a friendly peck, a long, passionate kiss that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Trevor Washington. I recognized him immediately, even though I hadn't seen him in over a year. He'd been Andre's best friend since their days at Ohio State, his best man at the wedding. The man who came to our house for dinner every few weeks, who clapped Andre on the back and called him brother while sleeping with his wife in the afternoons. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Every interaction I'd witnessed between Vanessa and Trevor over the years suddenly took on new meaning. The way they'd laugh a little too loud at each other's jokes, the way Trevor's eyes would follow Vanessa across a room, the way she always made sure to look her absolute best on the nights Trevor came for dinner. How long had this been going on? Months? Years? And how could Andre not see it? But I knew how. Vanessa was skilled at manipulation. She knew exactly how to keep Andre working late, exhausted, too busy, and too trusting to notice what was happening in his own marriage. She knew how to play the perfect wife in public while conducting her affair in secret. The question was, what was I going to do about it? My first instinct was to tell Andre immediately, to call him at work, to sit him down and explain what I'd seen, but I stopped myself. Vanessa had spent 6 years poisoning Andre against me, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state, suggesting I was becoming confused in my old age. If I came to him with nothing but my word against hers, who would he believe? The woman who'd publicly called me a useless old woman? Or the woman he thought was his devoted, loving wife? I knew the answer, and it broke my heart. But it also gave me clarity about what I needed to do. I needed proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. The next morning, I looked up private investigators in Cleveland on the computer at the public library. I found several, but one name stood out: Margaret Thompson. Her website said she specialized in matrimonial investigations, and the testimonials spoke of her discretion and thoroughness. I called her from a payphone outside the library, using quarters I'd saved. Thompson Investigations, came a professional female voice. "My name is Shirley Whitaker," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I need to hire you to investigate my daughter-in-law. I believe she's having an affair with my son's best friend." There was a pause. "Can you come to my office to discuss this? I don't typically take cases over the phone. I can't risk being seen going to a private investigator's office. My daughter-in-law monitors everything I do. Could we meet somewhere else? A coffee shop, maybe?" Another pause, longer this time. "Mrs. Whitaker, I'm going to be honest with you. My services are expensive. The retainer alone is $5,000, and a forensics and a full investigation with photographic evidence typically runs between $8,000 and $12,000, depending on how long it takes to gather conclusive proof. Do you have access to those kinds of funds?" I thought about the envelope in my drawer, the $42,000 I'd been saving. "Yes," I said firmly. "Money isn't a problem. Finding the truth is." We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in Tremont the next day, far from Shaker Heights where someone might recognize me. Margaret Thompson was a woman in her early 50s, professionally dressed with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to assess everything about me in the first 30 seconds. We sat in a corner booth, and I told her everything: the affair I'd witnessed, the years of abuse, the way Vanessa had isolated Andre from me and from anyone who might question her behavior. "Mrs. Whitaker, I have to ask, what's your goal here? What do you want to happen when the truth comes out?" "I want my son back," I said simply. "I want him to see who she really is, and I want her out of our lives." Margaret nodded slowly. "I can help you. But you need to understand something. Once we start this investigation, once we gather this evidence, there's no going back. Your son's marriage will likely end. His friendship with this Trevor might end too. His whole world is going to be turned upside down. Are you prepared for that?" "I'm prepared for him to know the truth," I said. "What he does with it is his choice, but he deserves to know who he's married to." Over the next 7 weeks, Margaret and her team followed Vanessa meticulously. They photographed her meeting Trevor at hotels downtown: the Marriott, the Ritz-Carlton, the Metropolitan. They documented 11 different encounters, each one providing more evidence of the affair. But Margaret discovered something even more disturbing, something I hadn't even suspected. She called me to meet at our usual coffee shop, and the look on her face told me this was serious. Mrs. Whitaker, in the course of following your daughter-in-law, I discovered some financial irregularities that I felt obligated to investigate further. What kind of irregularities? Vanessa has been systematically draining money from your son's accounts. She's opened credit cards in his name that he doesn't know about. She's taken out loans against their house. In total, I estimate she's stolen approximately $85,000 from him over the past 3 years. My hand went to my mouth. $85,000? Where did it go? Some went to fund her affair. Hotel rooms, gifts for Trevor, expensive trips she told your son were girls' weekends. But most of it went to gambling. Online gambling sites, specifically. Your daughter-in-law has a serious addiction, Mrs. Whitaker, and she's been funding it with your son's money. I felt sick. Not only was Vanessa betraying Andre with his best friend, she was also robbing him blind to feed a gambling addiction. Does Andre know about any of this? I don't believe so. She's been very careful to hide the evidence. But we have documentation of everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, photographs, everything you need to show your son the truth. The investigation cost me $11,500 total. Margaret gave me a thick folder containing every piece of evidence, along with a flash drive with digital copies of all the photographs and documents. What are you going to do with this? Margaret asked as she handed me the folder. I'm going to wait for the right moment, I said. A moment when Vanessa is at her most confident, her most arrogant. And then I'm going to show her that the useless old woman she's been abusing for 6 years isn't as stupid as she thought. That moment came 2 weeks later. It was Andre's work celebration dinner. He'd just been promoted to senior partner at his architecture firm, a huge achievement. Vanessa insisted on hosting a dinner party at an upscale restaurant in downtown Cleveland. The Oak Room, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. She invited 40 people, Andre's colleagues, their friends, Trevor of course, and various other people from their social circle. She made a big show of not inviting me initially, telling Andre that it was a professional event and not appropriate for family. But Andre insisted. Mom helped put me through college, he told Vanessa, loud enough that I could hear from my room. She's the reason I could afford to finish my degree. She's coming to the dinner. Vanessa agreed with obvious reluctance, making it clear that I was to sit at the far end of the table, away from the important guests. The night of the dinner arrived with perfect timing. I had the envelope ready, the smaller one containing the photograph that would change everything, not the folder with all the evidence that would come later. Just one photograph. One devastating image that would shatter Vanessa's carefully constructed facade. I wore my best dress, a simple navy blue one I'd found at Goodwill but had dry cleaned for the occasion. I did my own hair and makeup, wanting to look dignified, composed. I wanted Vanessa to see that the woman she'd been breaking down for 6 years still had strength left in her. The Oak Room was elegant, all dark wood paneling and crystal chandeliers. The private dining room Vanessa had reserved was impressive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. She'd spared no expense, which meant Andre's credit cards would be taking another hit he didn't know about. I arrived early, as Vanessa had instructed. I need you to check that everything is set up properly, she'd told me that morning. Since you're insisting on coming, you might as well make yourself useful. I didn't argue. I checked the place settings, the floral arrangements, the wine selection. Everything was perfect, as it always was when Vanessa planned events. She had impeccable taste. I had to give her that. It was her character that was rotten to the core. The guests began arriving. Andre looked handsome in his new suit, his face glowing with pride and accomplishment. He hugged me when he saw me. Thanks for being here, Mom. This promotion, it's because of the foundation you gave me, the work ethic you taught me. My heart squeezed. My son. My good, hard-working blind son, who had no idea what was happening in his own marriage. Vanessa was radiant in a red dress that probably cost $3,000, her hair and makeup professionally done. She worked the room like a politician, charming everyone, playing the role of the proud wife to perfection. And when Trevor arrived, she greeted him with a kiss on the cheek that lasted just a fraction too long, her hand resting on his arm in a way that would seem innocent to anyone who didn't know the truth. But I knew. And soon, everyone else would too. Dinner was served. Multiple courses, each one more elaborate than the last. The wine flowed freely. Vanessa made a toast to Andre, speaking eloquently about his dedication, his talent, his bright future. She didn't mention me once, of course. In her version of history, Andre had achieved all of this entirely on his own, or perhaps with her support. The mother who'd worked 2 jobs to pay for his textbooks simply didn't exist. I sat at my assigned seat at the far end of the table, eating quietly, watching, waiting. Several of Andre's colleagues tried to include me in conversation, asking about Andre as a child, about raising him. I answered politely but briefly. I wasn't here to socialize. I was here for justice. After the main course, before dessert was served, Vanessa stood up to make another announcement. I have a surprise for my wonderful husband, she said, her voice carrying through the room. Andre, you've worked so hard for this promotion. You deserve something special to commemorate it. She pulled out an envelope, expensive cream-colored stationery with gold trim. This is a gift certificate for a 2-week vacation to Hawaii. First class everything. Just the 2 of us. We leave next month. The guests applauded. Andre looked genuinely moved. Vanessa, that's too much. That must have cost a fortune. Nothing is too much for you, darling, she said, kissing him in front of everyone. You're worth it. Yes, I thought bitterly. He's worth the $85,000 you've stolen from him to fund this lavish lifestyle. That's when I stood up. My legs were steadier than they'd been in weeks. My voice, when I spoke, was calm and clear. Vanessa, since we're exchanging gifts tonight, I have something for you too. The room went quiet. Vanessa turned to look at me, surprise and irritation flickering across her face. Surely, this isn't really the time. Oh, I think it's exactly the time, I said, walking toward her end of the table. I pulled out my envelope, the small one. I've been saving something special for you. Something I think everyone here should see. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I was downtown about 2 months ago, I said conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather, outside the Marriott Hotel on Euclid Avenue. And I saw something interesting. I saw Vanessa's face go pale. Saw Trevor, sitting 3 seats down from Andre, stiffen in his chair. I saw you, Vanessa, with Trevor. And since I'm a useless old woman with nothing better to do, I thought I'd document it. I pulled the photograph from the envelope. It was an 8x10, crystal clear, professionally shot. Vanessa and Trevor locked in a passionate embrace in the parking garage, his hands on her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. The timestamp in the corner showed the date and time, 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, when Vanessa had told Andre she was shopping with friends. I held it up so everyone at the table could see it. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in that elegant dining room. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Trevor had gone completely white, his hand frozen halfway to his wine glass. And Andre, my poor son, just stared at the photograph with an expression of utter confusion, as if his brain couldn't quite process what his eyes were seeing. That's not... This isn't what it looks like. Vanessa stammered, her composure completely shattered. Really? I said, my voice still calm, because it looks like you've been having an affair with my son's best friend. It looks like you've been betraying the man who trusted you, who worked himself to exhaustion to give you this life you enjoy so much. I placed the photograph on the table in front of Andre. He picked it up with trembling hands, staring at it as if he could will it to be something else, anything else. Andre, Vanessa said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. Andre, let me explain. It's not what you think. She's lying. She's a bitter old woman who's always hated me. I have more, I said quietly. Many more photographs, different hotels, different days, 7 weeks worth of documentation. Would you like to see them, Andre? Or would you like to hear about the $85,000 your wife has stolen from you? The secret credit cards? The loans she's taken out against your house? The gambling addiction she's been funding with your money? Vanessa's face went from pale to gray. She swayed on her feet, gripping the table for support. You're lying, she whispered. You're a crazy old woman, and you're lying. I hired a private investigator, I continued, pulling out a business card and placing it next to the photograph. Margaret Thompson. Everything is documented. Every affair meeting. Every financial transaction. Every lie you've told. That's when Vanessa's eyes rolled back and her knees gave out. She collapsed to the floor in a dead faint, her expensive red dress pooling around her like blood. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Someone called for water. A few guests rushed to Vanessa's side, but Andre just sat there, still holding the photograph, staring at it as if he were in a trance. Trevor stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I need to leave, he muttered, but one of Andre's colleagues, a large man named Robert, blocked his path. I don't think so, Robert said firmly. I think you need to stay right here and face what you've done. A waiter brought smelling salts, and Vanessa came to after a few moments. She looked around wildly, disoriented, until her eyes landed on me. The hatred in that gaze was pure and undiluted. You evil woman, she hissed. You've destroyed everything. You're trying to ruin my marriage because you're jealous that Andre loves me more than you. I'm not trying to ruin anything, I said calmly. I'm simply telling the truth. Something you seem to be allergic to. Andre finally spoke, his voice flat and hollow. Is it true, all of it? Vanessa struggled to her feet, smoothing down her dress. Andre, baby, listen to me. That photograph, it's out of context. Trevor and I were just talking and he hugged me because I was upset about something. You had your tongue down his throat, one of the guests said bluntly. It was Mrs. Chen, one of Andre's colleagues' wives. I can see it clearly in the photo. That's not a comfort hug. The financial records, Andre said, still in that strange flat voice. Is that true too? I pulled out a folded piece of paper from my purse. This is a summary from the investigator. Secret credit cards totaling $43,000 in debt. A second mortgage on your house you didn't know about for $27,000. Online gambling losses of $15,000. All in the past 3 years. All hidden from you. Andre took the paper with shaking hands. He read it slowly, his face growing paler with each line. How did you pay for this investigation? Vanessa suddenly demanded, turning on me. You live off Social Security. You don't have money for private investigators. I've been saving, I said simply, for years. Every penny I could spare from my $890 monthly check. I had $42,000 saved up. Gasps went around the table. Andre's head snapped up. $42,000? Mom, on your income? How is that possible? I walked everywhere instead of taking the bus. I stopped taking some of my medications to save money. I bought clothes at Goodwill. I ate smaller portions. Every sacrifice was worth it to save that money. You were going to give it to me, Vanessa said suddenly, her eyes widening with realization. Months ago, you mentioned something about a gift you were saving for. That's what it was. You were going to give me $42,000. I admitted. I thought maybe if I proved I wasn't useless, if I showed I could contribute, you might treat me like a human being instead of a servant. But then you humiliated me at Andre's birthday party. And I realized that no amount of money would ever buy your respect. So I used it for something better. I used it to expose the truth. Andre stood up abruptly. Everyone needs to leave. Now. This dinner is over. The guests filed out quickly, some looking shocked, others sympathetic. Mrs. Henderson squeezed my shoulder as she passed. "You did the right thing," she whispered. Within 10 minutes, the private dining room was empty except for Andre, Vanessa, Trevor, and me. "Andre, please," Vanessa started, but Andre held up his hand. "Don't, just don't." He turned to Trevor. "You were my best friend, my brother. I trusted you with everything." Trevor couldn't meet his eyes. "Andre, man, I'm sorry. It just happened. We didn't mean for it to go this far." "How long?" Andre's voice was ice. 2 years, I said quietly. The investigator traced it back at least that far based on hotel records and credit card statements. Andre's face crumpled for just a moment before he regained control. 2 years. 2 years you've both been lying to my face." "It's not like that," Vanessa said desperately. "Andre, I love you. What Trevor and I have, it doesn't mean anything. It's just physical. You're the one I married. You're the one I want to build a life with. The life you've been building with my money that you stole?" Andre's voice rose for the first time. "The life you've been funding by taking out loans against our house? By opening credit cards in my name? You've destroyed my credit, Vanessa. You've put us in debt up to our necks. And for what? For hotel rooms with my best friend? For online gambling?" "I have a problem," Vanessa admitted, tears streaming down her face now. "I know I have a problem, but I can get help. We can fix this. Please, Andre, don't throw away our marriage over this." "You threw away our marriage," Andre said coldly, "the day you decided to sleep with Trevor, the day you decided to steal from me, the day you decided to abuse my mother in her own home." He turned to me then, and I saw tears in his eyes. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I let her treat you that way. I'm sorry I didn't believe you when you tried to tell me things weren't right." "I never tried to tell you," I said softly. "I was too afraid. Afraid you'd choose her over me." "I would have," Andre admitted, his voice breaking. "If you'd come to me without proof, I would have believed her. She had me so convinced that you were the problem, that you were difficult and demanding. I'm ashamed of how blind I was." "You loved her," I said. "Love makes us blind sometimes." "That wasn't love," Andre said bitterly. "I don't know what it was, but it wasn't love." He turned back to Vanessa and Trevor. "I want both of you out of my life. Trevor, our friendship is over. Don't call me, don't text me, don't come to my office. We're done." Trevor nodded miserably and left without another word, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the empty restaurant as he walked away from a friendship he'd destroyed. Andre turned to Vanessa. "As for you, I want you out of the house, tonight. Pack whatever you can carry and leave. Everything else we'll sort out through lawyers." "Andre, please," Vanessa begged, grabbing his arm. "Please don't do this. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll get help for the gambling. I'll do whatever it takes." Andre pulled his arm away from her grasp. "You stood in our kitchen in front of 100 people and called my mother a useless old woman. You knocked food out of her hands and made her clean it off the floor on her knees while everyone watched. That alone would be enough for me to end this marriage. The affair and the theft are just confirmation that I married someone I never really knew." "I was drunk," Vanessa said desperately. "I didn't mean those things. It was the wine talking." "Drunk words are sober thoughts," I said quietly. "You meant every word, Vanessa. That wasn't the wine, that was you." Vanessa turned on me with sudden viciousness. "This is all your fault. You couldn't just stay in your place. You couldn't just be grateful that we took you in when you had nowhere else to go. You had to destroy everything." I took myself in. I corrected her. I helped with the down payment on that house using my husband's life insurance money. And I've earned my place there every single day by cooking, cleaning, and enduring your abuse. But you're right about one thing. I did destroy something. I destroyed your lies. Andre called his lawyer right there from the restaurant, getting advice on how to proceed. Then he called a locksmith, arranging to have the locks changed immediately. Finally, he called the police, asking for an escort to supervise Vanessa packing her things. "You can't do this," Vanessa said, her voice rising toward hysteria. "That's my house too. I have rights." "Actually," Andre said coldly, "according to my lawyer, since you've been committing financial fraud and theft, I have grounds for an immediate separation and restraining order. The police escort is a courtesy. I could have you arrested instead." That shut her up. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. She'd lost everything: the marriage, the house, the lifestyle, and most importantly, the access to Andre's money. We drove home in silence, Andre and me in his car, Vanessa following in her Mercedes that Andre had paid for. The police were waiting when we arrived, two officers who looked bored with what they clearly saw as a domestic dispute. I waited downstairs while Andre supervised Vanessa packing. I could hear her crying, pleading, making promises. But Andre's voice remained firm. 30 minutes later, she emerged with 2 suitcases and a garment bag. She stopped in front of me on her way out. "I hope you're happy," she said, her voice thick with tears and hatred. "I hope you enjoy having your son all to yourself again. But just remember, you drove away the best thing that ever happened to him." "The best thing that ever happened to him was finally seeing the truth," I replied. "And if you were truly the best thing for him, you wouldn't have been sleeping with his best friend and stealing his money." After Vanessa left, escorted by the police to ensure she actually departed, the house fell into an eerie silence. Andre and I stood in the foyer, both of us processing what had just happened. "I need to see all of it," Andre said finally. "Every photograph, every document, every piece of evidence." We sat at the dining room table for hours, going through everything Margaret Thompson had compiled. The photographs of Vanessa and Trevor at various hotels over 7 weeks. The financial records showing the secret credit cards, the unauthorized loans, the online gambling transactions, the timeline showing how carefully Vanessa had hidden her double life. Andre's face grew harder with each page he turned, each photo he examined. How did I not see any of this? How was I so blind? "She was very good at deception," I said gently. "She made you believe what she wanted you to believe. That's what con artists do." "Is that what she was? A con artist?" "I think so." Margaret found some troubling things about Vanessa's past. Her real name is Vanessa Carter. Before she married you, she was briefly married to a man in Columbus who she also cheated on and stole from. "She has a pattern, Andre. You weren't her first victim." Andre put his head in his hands. "I feel like such a fool. 6 years of my life wasted on someone who never loved me, who just saw me as a meal ticket." "Not wasted," I said firmly. "You learned from this. You'll be wiser, more careful. And you still have your career, your health, your future. She took money, but she didn't take everything." "She almost took you from me," Andre said, looking up at me with tears in his eyes. "Mom, the way I let her treat you, the things I allowed to happen, I'll never forgive myself for that." "You're forgiven," I said simply. "You were manipulated, Andre. She spent years slowly turning you against me, making you doubt your own perceptions. That's what abusers do. They isolate their victims. I should have protected you. You're my mother. You sacrificed everything for me. And you're my son. I would do it all again if it meant keeping you safe." We sat in silence for a while, both of us emotionally exhausted. Finally, Andre spoke again. "The $42,000 you saved. Mom, that's incredible. On your income, that must have taken years of sacrifice." 4 years, I confirmed. Every month, setting aside what I could. "I want you to have it back, all of it. It's your money." I used most of it on the investigation, about $12,000. The rest is still in my account. "Then I'm giving you the $12,000 back, plus interest. That money was yours, and you shouldn't have had to spend it to expose what I should have seen myself. Over the next few days, the truth continued to unfold. Margaret Thompson's investigation had been thorough. She'd traced Vanessa's gambling to specific online sites, documented losses totaling nearly $18,000 over 18 months. She'd found evidence of the affair going back even further than 2 years, possibly closer to 3. Andre filed for divorce immediately, citing adultery and financial fraud as grounds. His lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, assured him that with the evidence we had, the divorce would be straightforward and Vanessa would be entitled to nothing. Ohio is an equitable distribution state, Patricia explained during our meeting at her office. But when there's proven fraud and theft, the court takes that into consideration. She stole $85,000 from you. She won't be walking away with half of anything. The divorce proceedings revealed even more disturbing truths. Vanessa had been lying about almost everything. She'd told Andre she had a degree in marketing from Cleveland State. That was false. She'd told him her parents were deceased. Also false. They were alive and living in Toledo, and when Patricia's investigators contacted them, they said Vanessa had been estranged from them for over 10 years due to her pattern of lying and stealing from family members. She has a history, Patricia told us. This isn't new behavior. She's done this before to other men, other families. You're just the latest victim, Andre. Trevor, meanwhile, had disappeared from Cleveland entirely. Someone said he'd moved to Chicago, too ashamed to face anyone who knew about the affair. Andre deleted his number, blocked him on all social media, and instructed his colleagues never to mention Trevor's name in his presence again. The weeks following the revelation were difficult. Andre threw himself into work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects. I knew he was avoiding coming home, avoiding the memories of his failed marriage that lingered in every room. But slowly, things began to change. Without Vanessa's constant manipulation and criticism, the house began to feel like a home again. Andre started cooking again, something he'd loved but that Vanessa had always criticized. He'd make Sunday dinners, trying out new recipes, asking for my opinion. "This is nice," I told him one Sunday evening as we sat at the kitchen table eating the pasta dish he'd prepared, having meals together like this. "It reminds me of when you were young, before your father passed away." "I forgot how much I enjoyed cooking," Andre admitted. Vanessa always made me feel like I was incompetent in the kitchen. She'd criticize everything I made, so eventually I just stopped trying. That's what she did best, made people doubt themselves. 3 months after the divorce was filed, we got word that Vanessa had left Cleveland. No one knew where she'd gone, but she'd stopped responding to her lawyer's calls and had missed 2 court dates. The judge issued a default judgment, granting Andre everything he'd asked for. "It's over," Patricia told us. "She's gone, probably moved on to another victim in another city. At least she's out of your lives." But the healing process was just beginning. Andre started therapy, working through the betrayal and the realization that he'd been manipulated for years. His therapist suggested family counseling too, sessions where Andre and I could work through the damage Vanessa had done to our relationship. "I let her convince me that you were the problem," Andre said during one of those sessions, tears streaming down his face. "Every time you tried to be part of our lives, she'd find a way to make it seem like you were being intrusive or demanding, and I believed her. She was very skilled at manipulation," the therapist said gently. "That's not a reflection on you, Andre. It's a reflection on her." 6 months after the divorce, Andre started dating again. He was cautious, moving slowly, clearly afraid of making the same mistake. He met a woman named Nicole at a charity event his firm was sponsoring. She was a nurse at Cleveland Clinic, 40 years old, divorced with 2 teenage children. The first time Andre asked me what I thought of her, I saw the fear in his eyes, fear that I'd disapprove, fear of repeating past mistakes. "I want your honest opinion, Mom," he said. "If there's anything that concerns you about Nicole, I need to know. I'm never going to ignore your instincts again." I like her, I said truthfully. We'd had coffee together twice, and Nicole had been warm, genuine, and interested in getting to know me as a person, not just as Andre's mother. She's real. She doesn't put on airs. She treats you with genuine respect, not that calculated charm Vanessa used. Andre smiled with relief. That's exactly what I thought. She's so different from Vanessa. She actually wants to know about my day. She asks about you. She brought her kids to meet me after only 3 dates because she said she didn't want to waste anyone's time if they didn't get along. Nicole started coming to Sunday dinners, sometimes bringing her son Marcus and daughter Tiana. It was wonderful to have young people in the house again, their laughter filling rooms that had been silent for too long. And Nicole always insisted on helping in the kitchen, treating me as an equal rather than an invisible servant. Mrs. Whitaker, she said to me one afternoon as we washed dishes together while Andre played video games with Marcus in the living room, Andre told me what happened with his ex-wife, what she did to you. I want you to know that I respect the place you have in his life. This is your home. I'm just grateful to be welcomed into it. Tears filled my eyes. Call me Shirley. And you're not just welcome, you're wanted. If Andre is happy with you, then you're family. A year after Vanessa's departure, we received unexpected news. She'd been arrested in Atlanta, charged with fraud and identity theft. Apparently, she'd moved on to her next victim, a wealthy real estate developer, and had been caught forging checks from his account. Do you feel anything for her? Andre asked when we saw the news article online. I thought about it carefully. Pity, I finally said. Pity for someone who never learned that real love and real relationships are worth more than anything you can steal or manipulate. Andre nodded. I feel the same way, and grateful that she showed her true colors before she did even more damage. The following year brought more positive changes. Andre and Nicole got engaged, and this time Andre asked for my blessing before proposing. Are you sure? I asked, not because I doubted Nicole, but because I wanted to be certain Andre was making the decision for the right reasons. I'm sure, he told me, but I'm doing things differently this time. No lavish wedding trying to impress people. Just family and close friends. People who genuinely love us and want us to be happy. Andre and Nicole's wedding was everything his first wedding hadn't been. Intimate, heartfelt, genuine. They held it in the backyard of our home in Shaker Heights with only 30 guests. Nicole's children stood up with them, and Andre asked me to give a reading during the ceremony. You're the most important woman in my life, he told me, and I want Nicole and everyone else to know it. Standing in front of those 30 people, reading a passage about love and commitment and truth, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was what a real wedding looked like. Not the elaborate spectacle Vanessa had orchestrated, designed to impress rather than celebrate. This was real love, built on honesty and mutual respect. After the ceremony, as we gathered for the reception dinner in our backyard, under string lights Andre and Nicole had hung themselves, Nicole pulled me aside. Shirley, I want to thank you for welcoming me into this family. I know it couldn't have been easy after what you went through with Vanessa. You're nothing like her, I said firmly. You're genuine. You care about Andre for who he is, not what he can provide. That makes all the difference. I also want you to know that Marcus and Tiana are excited about having a grandmother again. Their father's mother passed away 3 years ago, and they've missed that relationship. My heart swelled. I'd be honored to be their grandmother. And I was. Marcus, 16, was interested in architecture like Andre and would spend hours talking to him about building design. Tiana, 14, loved to cook and would join me in the kitchen, learning the recipes I'd perfected over decades. They called me Grandma Shirley, and it filled a space in my heart I didn't even know was empty. 2 years after Andre and Nicole's wedding, we received final news about Vanessa. She'd been convicted on multiple counts of fraud in Atlanta and sentenced to 4 years in prison. The prosecutor in that case had contacted Andre's lawyer, asking if he wanted to testify about Vanessa's pattern of behavior. Andre declined. She's already out of my life. I don't need to relive it in a courtroom. Let her face the consequences of what she did in Atlanta. That's enough for me. But Patricia did provide all of our documentation to the prosecutor, showing Vanessa's history. It helped establish a pattern that resulted in a longer sentence. She'll be 45 or 46 when she gets out, Andre said when we heard about the sentence. Maybe prison will finally make her face what she's done. Or maybe she'll just get better at not getting caught, I said realistically. Some people never change. Either way, she's not our problem anymore. Trevor's story had a different ending. About 18 months after everything happened, Andre received a letter from him. It had been forwarded through Andre's office, and Andre debated for a long time whether to even open it. Finally, with Nicole's encouragement, he did. The letter was long, filled with apologies and explanations. Trevor had moved to Chicago, as we'd heard, but had fallen into a deep depression. He'd lost his job due to poor performance. His girlfriend had left him when she learned about the affair. He'd hit rock bottom and finally sought therapy. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness, the letter said. I know what I did is unforgivable. I betrayed my best friend, destroyed a marriage, and contributed to the abuse of a woman who'd always been kind to me. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to take accountability without expecting anything in return. So here it is. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. You deserved better from me. Your mother deserved better. I'm sorry. Andre read the letter twice, then put it in his desk drawer. I don't know if I'll ever respond, he told me. Part of me wants to. Part of me feels like any response would be giving him something he doesn't deserve. You don't have to decide today, I said, or ever. Some things don't need closure. Some doors can just stay closed. As time passed, the wound of Vanessa's betrayal healed into a scar. Still there, still tender sometimes, but no longer bleeding. Andre flourished in his career, making partner at his firm. Nicole's nursing career advanced as well. Marcus was accepted to Ohio State's architecture program, following in Andre's footsteps. Tiana was thriving in high school, talking about culinary school. And me? At 66 years old, I was living the life I'd always wanted, but never thought I'd have. Respected in my own home. Valued for who I was, not just what I could do. Surrounded by family who actually loved me. I'd even managed to save money again, not by depriving myself this time, but because Andre insisted on contributing to a savings account for me. For travel, he said. For hobbies. For whatever you want, Mom, you've earned it. I used some of it to visit my sister in Florida, a trip I'd been putting off for years because Vanessa had always made it difficult for me to leave. I used more of it to take a cooking class with Tiana, learning French cuisine techniques we could practice together. And I donated a portion to a charity that helped elderly people escape abusive living situations, wanting to help others who might be suffering as I had. One Sunday afternoon, 3 years after the disaster at the Oak Room, I was sitting in the backyard watching Andre and Marcus work on a model building project while Nicole and Tiana prepared dinner inside. The Cleveland summer sun was warm on my face, and I felt a contentment I'd thought I'd never experience again. Nicole came out with a glass of lemonade for me. Shirley, dinner will be ready in about 30 minutes. Tiana's making your pot roast recipe. She wants to get it perfect. It'll be wonderful, I assured her. That girl has natural talent. Nicole sat down beside me. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret it? Exposing Vanessa the way you did? It was so public, so dramatic. Do you ever wish you'd handled it differently? I thought about it carefully. I regret that Andre had to be hurt. I regret that his trust was broken. But do I regret exposing the truth? No. Vanessa would have continued to steal from him, to abuse me, to manipulate him, until there was nothing left. Sometimes you have to burn down the lies to see the truth. You're very wise, Nicole said softly. I'm very old, I corrected with a smile. There's a difference. That evening, as we all sat around the dinner table sharing Tiana's perfectly prepared pot roast, I looked at each face and felt overwhelming gratitude. Andre, no longer the exhausted, manipulated man he'd been under Vanessa's control, but confident and genuinely happy. Nicole, warm and inclusive, making sure everyone had enough food and felt heard. Marcus, enthusiastic about his future, asking Andre detailed questions about architectural design. And Tiana, beaming with pride at her successful meal, already planning what to cook next week. This was what family was supposed to be. Not perfect, but real. Not performed for others, but lived authentically. "Grandma Shirley," Tiana said, pulling me from my thoughts, "will you teach me how to make your peach cobbler next? Mom says it's the best she's ever tasted." "It would be my pleasure, sweetheart." After dinner, as Andre and I cleaned up together while Nicole helped the kids with homework, he turned to me with a serious expression. "Mom, I've been thinking, this house, it's technically still half yours. You put in $45,000 from Dad's life insurance for the down payment. When I divorced Vanessa, the house became fully mine, but morally, legally, you still own part of it. Andre, that money was a gift. I wanted you to have a home." "I know, but I want to make sure you're protected. I've had Patricia draw up papers that put the house in both our names, equal ownership. That way, you'll always have security. You'll never be dependent on anyone's generosity again. This is your home, legally and officially." Tears filled my eyes. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. You saved me, Mom. Not just from Vanessa, but from becoming someone I wouldn't have recognized. You showed me what real strength looks like, what real love looks like. This is the least I can do." I hugged my son, this good man I'd raised, who'd lost his way but found it again. "Thank you, baby." 4 years after that Mother's Day disaster, I was sitting in the same backyard where we'd held Andre and Nicole's wedding, but this time, I wasn't alone with my thoughts. Nicole was beside me, showing me photos on her phone of a vacation they were planning to take to the Outer Banks. Andre was grilling burgers, singing along to the radio. Marcus was home from college for the weekend, telling stories about his professors. Tiana was setting the table, chattering about her upcoming culinary competition. The house was full of life again, real life. Not the artificial perfect life Vanessa had created to impress others, but the messy, loud, wonderful life of a genuine family. Sometimes I thought about that moment at the Oak Room when I'd handed Vanessa that photograph, the shock on her face, the way she'd collapsed, the complete destruction of the facade she'd built so carefully. People had asked me since then if I felt guilty, if I regretted humiliating her so publicly. The answer was no. Not even a little bit. Vanessa had humiliated me publicly, had made me kneel on a floor and clean up food while 100 people watched. She'd called me useless, treated me like a servant, stolen from my son, and betrayed him with his best friend. She'd gambled away $18,000 of Andre's money and taken out secret loans that had nearly destroyed his credit. Exposing her wasn't revenge, it was justice, it was protection. It was a mother doing what she had to do to save her son from a predator. And I would do it again without hesitation. "Shirley," Nicole called from the porch, "come look at this sunset. It's beautiful." I joined her, and she was right. The Cleveland sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple as the sun set behind the trees. It was the kind of sunset that made you grateful to be alive, grateful for second chances, grateful for truth. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Nicole said softly. "What would have happened if you hadn't found the courage to expose Vanessa? Where would Andre be now?" "Broke," I said honestly. "Divorced eventually anyway once she'd drained him completely. Or still trapped in a marriage with a woman who despised him but loved his bank account." "You saved him." "I did what any mother would do. I protected my child. Not every mother would have had that courage. Not every mother would have spent $12,000 of their hard-saved money on an investigation. Not every mother would have faced down their abuser in front of 40 people at an expensive restaurant. Then not every mother loves as fiercely as I do. As darkness fell and the family gathered for dinner under the porch lights, I felt a profound sense of peace, the kind of peace that comes from knowing you fought the right fight, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. My name is Shirley Whitaker. I'm 66 years old, and I am finally completely free. Free from abuse, free from manipulation, free from being treated as less than I am. I reclaimed my dignity, my home, and my son. And in doing so, I taught him the most important lesson I could give him, that the truth, no matter how painful, is always worth fighting for. The envelope I gave Vanessa that night didn't contain the $42,000 she probably expected. It contained something far more valuable and far more devastating. It contained the truth that set us all free. And sometimes, the truth is the greatest gift you can give, even when it destroys everything in its path, because what it destroys are the lies. And what remains, what's built on the ashes of those lies, is real. That's worth everything. As we held hands around the table and Andre said grace, thanking God for family and second chances and truth, I squeezed my son's hand and smiled. We had survived. We had healed. We had built something real from the ruins of what Vanessa had destroyed. And that was the greatest revenge of all. Not hurting her, but thriving without her. Living well, living honestly, living free. That's what I'd fought for, and that's what we'd won. That is Shirley Whitaker's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these stories about elder abuse, family betrayal, and the moment when a mother fights back to save her son. Real question. If you were Shirley, what would you have done? Would you have endured the abuse in silence to keep the peace? Would you have spent your life savings on a private investigator? Or would you have exposed the truth in front of 40 guests at that expensive restaurant? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something. Share it if you know someone being mistreated by their own family members. Someone living in their child's home but being treated like a servant. Someone who saved $42,000 from an $890 monthly check through pure sacrifice and determination. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about daughters-in-law who abuse their mothers-in-law, affairs with the best friend, gambling addictions that destroy families, and what happens when the useless old woman everyone underestimated turns out to be the smartest person in the room. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the person abusing you in your own home is stealing from your child behind your back. Sometimes the perfect wife is sleeping with the best friend and hiding a gambling addiction. Sometimes spending your life savings on the truth is the best investment you'll ever make. And sometimes the most powerful thing an elderly mother can do is hand someone an envelope with a photograph that changes everything. See you in the next video.